You're wiped out of here. Mark on my book.
Oh, I don't know.
Library is really.
I'm gonna take my book.
Stella Days, I'm gonna have to look that up.
I didn't read it.
Thank you.
Well, he lost his book. Name was Estevez. Okay. Where's your name tag, Father?
I don't need one. You need one, because I can't remember your
It's
name.
right there. It's right there on the board.
Oh, well, I just had to say something. I told him, yeah, I called him.
She's just
this-
trying to be a wise person.
No, not near as wise as you.
All right, we ready to go? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Holy Spirit of God, take me as your disciple. Guide me, illuminate me, sanctify me. Bind my hands that they may do no evil. Cover my eyes that they may see it no more. Sanctify my heart that evil may not dwell within me. Be thou my God, be thou my guide. Whithersoever thou leadest me, I will go. Whatsoever thou forbiddest me, I will renounce. Whatsoever thou commandest me in your strength, I will do. Lead me then into the fullness of your truth. Amen.
Amen.
St. Paul,
Pray for us.
St. Andrew,
Pray for us.
Our Lady of the Ground.
Pray for us.
All righty. Well, tonight we are talking about, I could say an old friend of mine, but that wouldn't be true. I do know Martin. I'm not sure Martin would remember me, but anyway, that's neither here nor there, right? And I do know Sister Rose Paquette, and she and I have been in the communications business for many, many years before I became a pastor. And so she is a rather an Herculean woman, I think. She has MS and has since she was about, I don't know, she's probably had it about pretty close to 30 years. And so because we were very much a part of UNDA USA, which was the National Association of Catholic Broadcasters. And I was the president at one point, and she was very much a part of the whole thing, and a person who does a lot of work with reviewing movies. So she spends a lot of times watching movies and then reviewing them and telling everybody why they really should go see them, even though it's very interesting. She has a very different point of view from her community. Her community is the Sisters of St. Paul. And I would say, offhand, I could be criticized for this, I suppose, but like so many things, I think they're a little more on the conservative side than, let's say, the Paulist Fathers, okay? And but they do some really great work, and they do some great media work. And Rose was always interested in educating people to know more about movies and their value in terms of trying to help people understand what's going on in society and how that would affect their lives as Catholics, etc. Which was not unlike what I at the same time was doing, not in the movies or anywhere near the movies, although I'd love to go to movies, but in doing music the same way. I would take music and put it on the radio and then comment on the music, because you could draw enormous, wonderful stories and very Christian attitudes out of the songs of the people who were doing it at that time, which for me was like 1969 to about, maybe about 1999, 2000, somewhere in through there. I did that show every week for 33 years. So there was a lot of music went by in 33 years.
When you did that?
No.
Oh, so where were you, may I
I
ask
was
where you were?
I was a priest producer.
But where did this broadcast
Oh,
come
from
from?
Washington D.C.
Oh,
and all across the United States. I mean,
Oh.
you never heard it? You weren't listening?
I'm sorry, no.
That's the trouble.
Uh-oh.
I do all this and nobody even pays
I
any
walked right
attention.
into that.
You did walk right into that one.
Yes, I did.
So,
Now we could have tuned in online. You know?
huh?
Now we could have tuned in
Now
online.
you could have tuned in
Everybody would have
online,
had
that's
it.
right, yeah. As a matter of fact, because all the stations all now carry, they all have websites. Honestly, I wonder sometimes, how does the website carry all of this stuff? How does the web carry all this stuff? It's amazing.
I think that's why they call it cloud.
The cloud, that's where they preserve things. The web is actually up there. But anyway, whatever. Yes, you could have done that. And it was syndicated all across the United States. Somebody said to me, in fact, I was on the radio the other day, pushing the day of prayer for peace, and one of the disc jockeys said to me, he says, I think I heard you on the air. He says, it was a little while ago. I said, yeah, it was, a little while ago. And I said, where were you when you heard it? And he said, Saginaw, Michigan.
Oh,
It was one of our stations. So, I mean, we had programming on in Saginaw. So yeah, he probably did hear it. Now, how he could remember, it's more than I know. But what he did hear was a priest doing music. And there was only 3 of us doing it. And Father Harry Schlitt, who is now retired, Father Joe Bregner, who is now retired, and me. So Joe Bregner did country. Father Harry Schlitt did a thing called the God Squad, and I did my thing, which was called Sound and Sense. Father Joe Bregner's program was called Country Roads.
would we have got that in Grand Rapids back then?
I can't remember really whether Grand Rapids was
I
one of
mean,
the stations or not,
yeah.
but it probably was, at least for a little while.
Okay.
And yeah, you could have picked it up from there.
Maybe I
But
got
people
A.
had to know. I mean, it was just like,
Oh.
I got on a station in Seattle. Now, my sister's family, my sister and her family, live in Seattle. So I thought, I'll let them know that Uncle John is on the radio on Sunday mornings, right? I was on Sunday mornings at 6:30. What a wonderful thing it would be for the whole family to hear that, particularly my nephews and nieces, right? So I sent a letter. This was back in the old days. I sent a letter, this kind of letter, and waited, needless to say, breathlessly while they made their big decision about whether to listen to the program or not. So anyway, at some point I called my sister and said, hey, by the way, I said, have you heard the program yet? John, she says, a little something came up. I said, really, what's that? She said, we had a little vote about whether we should get up at 6:30 in the morning to listen, and you lost. So anyway, you just never know where you're going to get these really strokey things from your family, right?
Oh, gee.
And you lost. So,
Oh, my.
but anyway, yeah. So that show was on at its height, quote, was on about 200 stations all across the United States.
There might be an archive of that online or
So,
something.
well, actually, there was a guy called me a couple of years ago. I couldn't believe this. That was when I was here. And he said, "You Father John Geaney?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I would like to play your program." And I laughed. I said, "It's been a long time since I did that program." No, Father. He says, "I found a box
Oh,
with a whole pile of tapes in it." And I said, "Where did you find this?" "It's a station in Arizona."
oh my
And I said,
gosh.
"Really?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "And what?" I said, "And what was on the tapes?" He said, "Well, the miracle of it," and it's true. I mean, in these days, nobody uses tape anymore, right? So these things had stayed in that radio station for God knows how long, right? And he said I had to pull the tape away from the cardboard of the box.
Oh my
And he said they
gosh.
were that old and that. And I said, "And then what did you do?" He said, "Well, we still have a tape recorder here in the station, so I popped it up on the thing just to see what it was." He said, "I really like that show." And I said, "Well, yeah," I said, "but, and he said, "Do you have any copies left?" I said, "Yeah, we have a few sitting around. We had about 100. which would be about 200, actually 200 shows, because we had 100 discs and there were 2 shows on the disc. And I said, yeah, we got about 100 of them left. I said, but that's really old-fashioned music now. And he said, I know, but this is a very old-fashioned station. That's why I like it. And so he put it on the air. I couldn't believe it. You know, I thought, good Lord. And you know, I'm talking about the Washington Redskins and Joe Gibbs and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it made no sense whatsoever. But he played them, and then maybe about 6, maybe 9 months later, I got a call. And it was a woman. And she said, are you Father John Geaney? And I said, yes. And she said, this is so-and-so from whatever station it was in Arizona. And I said, oh. I said, what can I do for you? And she said, I just want to know, are there any obligations that we have to play that program? And I said, no. And I said, what do you mean obligations? Well, like, do we owe you any money? My husband died, she said, and we're closing the station. So, you know, it's amazing the things that you run into in broadcasting. That you just never think about, is that really, you know, what it's like. And my favorite story, if you've heard it before, too bad you'll hear it again, but is of, the guys used to kid me in the Polish Fathers, whoever listens to that show, you know, you're on at 3 and 4 in the morning, nobody ever hears you, you know, and it's a waste of money and blah, blah, blah. And so I got a letter from a man, and he said, Father, I was up the other evening listening to the radio and I heard your program. It was at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I thought, God, the guys are right, you know. and I said, and he went on to say, my wife just died. One of my daughters is in a mental institution, and I take care of the other one at home. She is handicapped. And I just wanted you to know how much your program, especially the song that you played, helped me during that night. And I thought, you know what?
You touch me.
That was worth every little crazy time to get on the air and all that kind of stuff.
Made the whole career worthwhile, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, yes. I mean, just that I can remember even the way he stated it, you know, it's amazing. And, but so you don't know what you're doing when you do that kind of stuff. And that's the thing about broadcasting. Broadcasting is always the same. There's always, when I'm talking to you right now, you're reacting, right? In one way or the other. You're either falling asleep or you're paying attention or whatever, right? But I know immediately, you know. Communication is instantaneous. Radio, television, any of those mediums are all delayed. All the reaction is delayed. That's the difference between communication like this and any kind of media communication. Media communication is always delayed in some way or other, right? Even with our messaging and so on and so forth. You send a message and you expect an immediate answer. Doesn't happen all the time. I sent one out about 5:30. This person hasn't answered yet. How could they not answer? I mean, I want an answer, right?
I'll go with
Especially
conspiracy
from him.
theory and say it's still stuck in
Yeah.
NSA.
Right, whatever. But I mean, the point is that it's always delayed, so you do not know. And that's one of the problems of doing radio and television. That when you put something up there, you think it's terrific. And people watch it later and they thought it was awful, right? I mean, this past weekend, the movie, which they spent millions and millions of dollars on, it came in second in the rankings. Sully was first. And then there's another movie, I can't remember the name of it, came in second. I mean, way, way back, right? Well, the delay is the studio's already spent all the money. You know, no way they can recapture it unless the people like the movie. People didn't like the movie; they didn't go. So the reaction, you know, telling you what you thought was very good, is really they thought was kind of bad, and so all of a sudden you're in a different ball of wax altogether. So it's a kind of a fascinating thing, and it's the same thing with the difference between preaching and doing something on the radio or television, is that delayed reaction. The Mass on Sunday is a little different because the reaction is immediate to the people sitting watching it, but you don't hear about it until later. You know, whether it was good or bad or different. You know, so anyway, I don't know why we're doing all this talking about me when we're supposed to be talking about Martin Sheen. But anyway, and I'll tell you the story a little later on of how I met Martin. But anyway, this is the People of God series, and we want to talk about contemporary people of God. And so we've decided to talk about Martin Sheen tonight, and you can see him there. kind of youngish, middle-aged, and kind of now. And this is his latest movie, On the Way. So he sees himself as a pilgrim on the way, and he created that movie with his son to show it. And it went reasonably well. Not a great movie, but it went reasonably well. By that I mean sales-wise. You can never tell the other way. All right. So if you're going to talk about the people of God, then it seems to me you've got to start talking about who the people of God are, right? And I think in the years gone by, we often thought that this was the church, right? This is a picture, by the way, of some of the old Paulists, all right? This is a bunch of nuns, right? Remember these crowd? This crowd? Huh?
Flying
Right?
nun.
Who were the flying nuns? Yeah,
Sally
who were they?
Field.
Huh?
Sally
Field,
Field.
right? And the flying nuns. But who were they?
I'm
What was the nuns?
I'm not sure.
Sisters of Charity.
Oh,
Okay? All right? These I don't know. These I don't know. What is this one?
Mercy Providence.
Huh?
Mercy Heads?
No,
Notre
Divine
Dame?
Lord, no.
Dominican?
No, Sisters of St. Joseph.
oh, I thought so.
Generally speaking, anyway. All right? How about this bunch?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, gang.
I don't know.
You don't know that bunch?
I was born in '65 and I'm a convert.
Yeah, well, of course. Being a convert, well, so we can excuse you.
That's
But
not the, no.
being born in '65 would be no excuse. You know, at least if you had your eyes open. Well, anyway. So this is a sister of the Holy Cross.
Oh,
Okay? How do I know that? I have a cousin who's one of them.
oh, there you go.
And she used to wear that habit. And this is, I say, Sisters of St. Joseph. These two are probably versions of the others, the other groups. But you never know because they all have different paraphernalia and so on and so forth. But I know this one very well.
Oh,
Because I had those people in class when I was a kid. So, and we often, I've told this story many times too, about, I said to my mother one time, I said, wow, you know, some of those nuns are pretty good looking, you know. I said, they're not like you, Ma. I'm not really bright. They're not like you, Ma. Their skins is very, you know, fair and all that kind of stuff. I said, where do you think that comes from? She says it's the soap, John. Never been able to figure that one out. Never been able to figure that out. Anyway, prior to 1965, which is when the Second Vatican Council ended, right? Prior to 1965, I think pretty basically we thought the church was the hierarchy, right? And the magisterium, boy golly, if the bishop said something, was law, right? And we did it, right? No matter what, pay, pray, and obey. The priests, you know, were part of the church. If you wanted to know something about the church, you asked the priest. You didn't talk about it among yourself, you asked the priest. That's the only way you can really find out what's happening, right? It was just imperative. And the nuns, right? That's what we thought of as being the church. That was the church. Whenever anything needed to be done or decided or whatever, it was that group of people who made the difference. You always asked who it was that was doing it. I remember, again, sorry if I've told you this story before, because I love to tell this story, but the night before Pius XII, well, not the night before, but the night before the fast at midnight ended, okay? Pope Pius XII said, we don't need to fast anymore from midnight until you went to communion. Remember those days? Some of you must, right? You're too young. But we fasted. We would go to bed at night and you would fast until after communion the next day. So if you went to the 10 o'clock mass, you could be pretty wobbly by the time you got out of mass, right? And my sister used to go to the midday mass all the time. I never did understand how she stood it. But anyway, so anyway, the night before this fast was to end, my mother said to my father, she said, Geaney, starting tomorrow, or starting tonight at midnight really, you don't have to fast anymore before you go to communion. You just have to fast for an hour. And my father said in a wonderful Irish brogue, he says, now, who decided that? And my mother said, she said, the Pope did. Really? Did he? And she said, yes, he did. And he says, well, now, he says, the Pope may want to go to hell, but he's not taking me with him.
oh my God.
So, I mean, you know, we really did think that these guys were really in charge and that whatever they said was law, except my father who said, not me, I'm not going that way.
Father, was it 3 hours though? It seemed like when I made my first communion.
No.
It went to 1, from
Right.
12
Right
to
from-
1?
Right from midnight to when
1
you
hour.
receive communion to 1 hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think reasonably unobserved these days too. I see people walking into church drinking coffee.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, folks. I don't want to say that. And I think even every so often, not that it would ever happen at the cathedral, but I have on occasion seen priests walking in with cups of coffee too before mass.
not you.
What's going on here?
Not,
Not me,
No,
no,
no.
of course not. Not any of our priests. It
No.
must have been some visitors or
Yeah.
something, right? So, so anyway, but I really do think that was pretty clearly what we
Yes.
thought, right? Amen?
yes, amen.
Yeah, pretty much. But when the Second Vatican Council came along, we decided that that was not so true, all right? So the people of God are the church. That's this. It's not like even what do you call it? Debatable. Okay. Council Fathers. By the way, today is the feast of Saint John Chrysostom. Was one of the great teachers of our church, and a doctor of the church. But they said right away, the people are the church. Okay. And how did they say that? Well, you can read this for yourself, right? Christ is the light of nations. That was the Lumen Gentium, okay? Light of the people. Because this is so, this sacred synod gathered together here, okay, is going to proclaim the gospel to every creature, to bring the light of Christ to all people, a light brightly visible on the countenance of the church. You notice I changed that to people, because that's really what it means. The Latin for man is applicable to all people. It's like homo, and so that's what we use. It's a Latin phrase, homo. It's like the Spanish people. They always get up and say hermanos, which means everybody, right? They don't say hermanos, hermanas. They say hermanos. Everybody is involved. It's the same thing here. Okay, so everywhere you see men, they would probably today say to all people. Although now that I think about it, they don't. But anyway, a light brightly visible on the countenance of the church, right? So we're proclaiming the gospel to every creature to bring the light of Christ to all people. A light that you see visible on the countenance of the church. So the light of Christ becomes the light of the church. And it's the church that you are a part of. We're all a part of the church. Are the bishops a part of the church? Of course they are. Is the Pope a part of the church? Yes, he is. Are you a part of the church? Yes, you are. Are the priests a part of the church? Yes. We are all the church. It is not just the hierarchy, the priests, the nuns, all those people that we always, the brothers, that we used to consider they were the holy ones, right? And then they were the rest of us. No, we are all the church together. And so they go on to say, the church has been seen as a people made one with the unity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? So we are all one. We are all a part of the church. We are all represented by the church. We are all able to do for the church what needs to be done, namely to bring the light of Christ to all people wherever they are. And they go on to say a little later, as all the members of the human body, though they are many, form one body, so also are the faithful in Christ. Okay? So, and they go on again, in the building up of Christ's body, various members and functions have their part to play. Okay? So are the priests still priests? Of course they are, right? Are the bishops still bishops? Of course they are. Is the Pope still the Pope? Amen. All right? But we also have people who have none of those situations, but they are members of Christ's body. And because they are, then they move further into being capable of and having gifts to give to the church that might never happen any other way. So, according each person to his own richness and the needs of the ministries, gives different gifts for the welfare of the church. Have you ever seen many priests dancing on the altar? No.
No.
Have you ever seen dancers dancing on the altar? If you haven't, you should.
Around it, not on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not dancing. I don't mean on the living altar, but on the sanctuary. You know, if you see them, they're just gorgeous. We had a troupe in at St. Augustine's in Memphis that that I must say I'm very proud to have started. And the kids, they were little kids when they started. You know, by the time I left, they'd all grown into these big teenagers. And anyway, but they have gifts that they bring to the church that other people will not. Okay? So, and that's really what we're talking about here. That we all have an obligation to be the people of God, and in that obligation, we are talking about the gifts that people bring to the church that nobody else can do, and they do it in a spectacular way in many, many cases. Okay? So, what is Martin Sheen doing? I believe, and he believes too, that he is being a part of the church. And you say, wait a minute, he's just a movie star. Yes, he is a movie star. And that's one of the great gifts that he brings, okay? How many priests do you know who are movie stars? How many bishops do you know who are movie stars? Right? So what do? They influence the industry to which they have been called, right? Martin Sheen influences Hollywood. Okay? Now we can say, in his, quote, dog days, that some of the movies he created were not the best, all right? Other movies he created were very much that way, and the older he gets, the more the movies are that he produces that help him to be who he needs to be, okay? He needs to be a person who is reflecting Christ to the world, all right? Before he caught on to that, there was a little bit of other stuff going on, right? Okay, so he is an actor, all right? He is very much a social activist. And you can think of all kinds of movie stars who are, all right? Some more than others, some better than others. Nevertheless, they still believe in and create activism, right? Social activists. He's very much a family man. He's been married 50 years. Oh, in Hollywood to the same woman. You know? That's not just being a good Christian and a good Catholic, that's a miracle. No, who said that? That's terrible. There are very few people in Hollywood who last, their marriages last. They're very few. And Martin's one of them. Now, the interesting thing about Hollywood and about the people in broadcasting and so on and so forth is that many, in fact most of them, are very good family people. But, quote, the stars oftentimes get caught up in their celebrity. And I think they also get caught up in the amount of money they have to spend, and they don't know, frankly, much what to do about it. Okay? Martin never has had a whole pile of money until more recently. And he also has a very thoughtful and caring wife. And I think that makes a huge difference. And she's with him all the time and help he and she together create the family that they have. And Martin is also a Catholic and came from a very Catholic family. Okay? Now, you might say, were they practiced their faith well? Well, you know, kind of here and there. But the kids were all raised as Catholics. They all went to Catholic schools. They all, they were all servers, all that good stuff. The typical, what you would call Catholic family, living in Dayton, Ohio, and working for NCR. Okay? Who remembers NCR?
National Cash Register.
National Cash Register, yeah, right. The whole family really gets all of their, their background from the National Catholic Register. I mean, the National Cash Register, not the National Catholic Register. Okay, so that gives you just these, and these we'll work with some of these to tell you what he is and what he became. Okay, he became an actor very early in his life. All right, he obviously. Oh, yeah, we should talk about this a little bit. Well, we did talk about that already. But the key here, the task of the church is to make people more human. Okay, this is from Eugene Kennedy, who wrote a book called "The People of the Church." All right, and this is one of the lines from there. The task of the church is to make people more human, more conscious of their destiny and the conditions of their pilgrimage to eternal life. Okay. That's the role of the church, all right? The church must know what people are all about if it would help them to know what life is all about. And it's very important for us as church to know what life is all about. And so the people that we meet every day in the various places in our lives, they help us to be better Christians. They help us to be better Catholics, and they make the world better by being who they are. Okay? So Kennedy is calling for that to help us understand what's going on in the church. The task of the church to make people more human. Okay? And you say, no, no, no. What would you say to that, Alexia?
I like it.
You like that? Okay. Doesn't it occur to you that maybe the job of the church is to make people more holy?
The rest I like.
Oh, the less. More conscious of their destiny, right. And the conditions of their pilgrimage to eternal life. But the essence there, I think oftentimes we think too often, I believe anyway, that the church is going to help us be holy, quote, right? And I believe that holiness comes about basically because we know what we're doing, where we're going, what our destiny is. Okay? That we know and understand a little bit that we are on a pilgrimage. All right? A pilgrimage which is going to end, even though we pretend it won't. All right? Because that pilgrimage is going to get us to eternal life, which we all say is what we really want. Okay? And as I often say, just so long as it's tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? Because tomorrow never comes.
Not yet.
Okay? So, and if the church is going to be helping the world, then we really do have to know what people are all about and how we can make a difference in our world. So that's what we're looking at tonight. All right. He was born in 1940 and he was baptized Ramon Gerard Estevez. Okay?
There it is.
How did we ever get to Martin Sheen? That's another story that I'll tell you later. All right? He was born in 1940. That gives you an idea of where he is today, right? Not a young man anymore. All right? Okay? He's 3 years younger than I am. And that's, of course, a picture of him was not when he was being baptized, but a little later on. All right? So, and everything in his family is very, very Spanish. Okay, his dad was Spanish. And the good part was that his mother was Irish. No! All right? So, but it's a great, apparently it's a great combination, right? So mom was Irish, and dad was a Spaniard. They were both immigrants. I mean, this is the story of today, really, right? There's a Spanish man who comes over across the United States, okay? Sister Rose didn't talk about whether they were legal or illegal, right? Same thing with mom. Mom came over from Ireland, all right? And they met each other and they married, okay? After quite a quick courtship, by the way. Neither here nor there, but they did. They had a very quick, what do you call it? Courtship. And then, 'tis said, whether it's true or not, we have no idea, that their father worked every day of his life, including his wedding day. Okay? That the mass for the wedding was at 6 o'clock, and he went to work at 7. Okay?
A.M.?
Now, that's a story, yeah.
Oh,
Of course, yeah. And this is back a few years, right? And she lost the first baby.
oh.
First baby was stillborn, and she moved back to Ireland to be near the people that she thought, could care for her and all that kind of stuff. And had the second baby, who was her, you know what I'm saying. She had the second child, first living child, and then she moved back to date after that. A little more secure herself, I guess. And had a large number of children. Sheen grew up a Catholic. By that we mean, he did all the things that everybody else does. Catholic schools, server, blah, 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 etc. But so he was a pretty good Catholic all the way. His early life was in New York. And he did what young actors do. Okay? Young actors, because they have no money, they get jobs wherever they can. They're waiters, waitresses, etc., etc. And so he did all of that. He always had trouble holding on to money, I guess, and couldn't make a whole pile of it. I mean, many starving, if you don't, you can find them all over the place. Starving actors and actresses. Okay. There are, I would say, thousands of actors and actresses who never get anywhere, who die on the vine, sometimes in some really tough situations, for every one who succeeds. And, you know, no matter when you turn around, they want to have another movie out of it. They're like Hanks, you know. Right? No matter what he touches, it turns to gold, so why not, you know? And Martin turned out to be that way too. But when he was in New York, he was able, he had these little jobs that weren't any good. He would be starving, be hungry, whatever. So he decided to go down to the daily worker movement, the Catholic worker movement, and which brought him in touch with Doris Day, with Dorothy Day. All right. Now, again, Rose says in the book that he never met Dorothy Day, which I find a little hard to believe, because she was around. She ran a house, a kitchen, you know, a Dorothy Day house. I don't know if have you ever seen a Dorothy Day house? We have one here in Grand Rapids. I've never heard
There's
anybody
one
speak
in,
of it.
I don't know if it's Dorothy Day, but I know there's a worker community in Saginaw.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm pretty sure that's a Dorothy Day house. We have one in Memphis. We had, you know, it was just a place where people could come, have a meal for a while, then boop, off they would go. You know, having been helped along through this thing. And Dorothy Day was a very much an activist person. And well, as they say, he never met her. He just took to heart what she said, and she clearly influenced him in his work. All right, not in the art, but in the other stuff. Okay, is this where we want this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think right now we're going to take a break. All right, and we'll set up for probably his best starring roles, and then we'll go back to his activist stuff. So why don't we come back about 7:45 or so? All right.
Father,
Yeah.
I want to know, did you
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the movie maker, who is Martin Sheen, before we get into the other material. And the best way, I think, to show an actor is to show him, so you see him doing his craft. So this first scene is the first scene of Apocalypse Now, and you might think, when you see it, you think to yourself, ooh, what's with this? But at the time, Martin was going through a very dark time in his life. He was beginning to realize that he was an alcoholic. And so this scene that you're going to see, he did while he was drunk. And plus it has all kinds of stuff overlaid on top of it. And all the stuff you see, he's not imitating a drunk, he just is. And the director told him that he would not use it unless he'd seen it first and approved it to be used in the way they used it here in the opening.
I think it kind of made it a classic part of
Yeah.
the movie.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end, no safety, no surprise. The end, I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be? So limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land. Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane. Waiting for the sun.
Saigon. Shit. I'm still only in Saigon.
Brought to you by the Space Pope.
That's the trouble with these things. All righty, we're finished there.
This is the musical about a wedding. And this is the reception it gets every night. Mamma Mia.
We want you gone, and then we'll Mamma Mia.
Well, we'll just hold this.
Hold this, okay.
You can actually turn a few lights on here to see.
Yep.
Okay, so what did you see in that movie, in that clip, really? Whoa. Whoa. So what did you see in the clip?
And heard, the Doors selection is, definitely went well with it.
The what?
The Doors.
Oh, the
song,
music,
yeah.
right, okay. Good. What did you see?
Jungle and helicopters and flames.
All right. At least the jungle was sure in flames, yeah. Oh.
Conscience and fear, perhaps.
A lot of fear, I would say, yeah. What else did you notice?
You're talking about Martin Sheen or in general?
Well, just in general, I mean, because Martin Sheen is the one who's playing
Right.
the role. So,
Besides the bloodshot eyes.
besides the bloodshot eyes, which are really bloodshot because he was drunk,
He was perspiring,
right, a little bit, yeah, right.
he had the cigarette in his hand.
You don't know if he's gonna.
Right,
Oh,
he had the
that's
gun.
right.
I mean, I think that's the
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
as
Yeah,
they pan across the
Yeah.
bed from him, you see the gun there, you just,
That's
you know, you
right.
can't miss it.
right.
So what is he thinking of doing? Well, how many people have a gun laying beside them when they're
Right.
in bed? You know,
Saigon.
so it's Saigon, right, and he's thinking of killing himself. And at that point, he was pretty much in that same state as a human being. You know. He was, the alcoholism had gotten to him, he didn't know what to do about it, he wasn't able to make the leap, and so it pretty much was what he wanted. The director said to him, you know, if you don't really want to do this, and he said, yeah, I do want to do it. He said, you're drunk. I know I'm drunk, that's why I want to do it. So,
When you see the picture of the woman in the letter, so you could surmise either it is a divorce, you know,
Right,
woman,
his
wife
family.
saying, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm done with
right.
you, or even just the loneliness of being away, but there's some relationship thing there too
yeah,
that you kind of
yeah.
touch on.
I have no idea, I just wonder if it's Janet's picture, his wife's picture, actually.
And then it was Vietnam, so a letter from home in those days.
Yeah. So all of those things are mixing around in his own life, and so in a certain sense, it's a tale of his life. It's also a tale of what war does to people. And later on in his life, he will get back to dealing with that, or trying to make a difference, so that we get rid of war, period. And he's a very strong activist that way. And you'll see a little later on, you know, what he goes through in order to do that. So that's probably one of the things that Martin did, was that even when he was nominated for awards, he oftentimes took his name out of contention. He believed that nobody deserved, he doesn't think anybody should get an Oscar, because it's not one person that makes the movie. You know, it's a whole team of people. So if you think I did a terrific job there, it's because I had a good director, I had a good voice coach, I had all the people that are part of the movie, that you can't make the movie without. And the guys that are flying the helicopters, the camera people that are doing their work, whatever that happens to be, you know, the sound people that catch that sound, which I think probably was in 2 takes. You know, first he says Saigon, and I think that's a dub. It sounds like they laid that in later, because the next sound isn't quite the same. And when he uses the excavator, and then goes on from there. So it's still in Saigon.
Don't they say in the book that his brother did some of the voiceovers for that because he wasn't able to?
That could well be. Oh, that's right. He
And-
had a heart attack.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
that only family members, and you obviously have a good ear,
That-
couldn't really tell who was who, so they
Yeah,
you
right.
just
No,
were able
that's
to
true.
tell.
Yeah, they're very much that way.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. But it's an interesting piece. It's particularly good the fact that they were able to, because this is just what do you call it? YouTube. You know, that you would be able to make that distinction in a frame is very good. But these are red hot people. I mean, that make this movie. This is top flight stuff. And so this is when he's at the height of his career, you know, from the point of view of acting and so on and so forth. And he is in despair himself because of all the difficulties that he's facing. And so he wanted to do this scene just the way he was.
It's really pretty on the map.
I just really put him on the
He had a heart attack during the.
He had a heart attack during the filming, yeah. Right. Yeah.
He's
So,
only about, what, 40, 39, 40?
29, because it
It
was
was
when he was
39.
40, so 39, yeah.
yeah,
39,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not terribly good about keeping the ages straight.
But that's just for heart attack.
They all blend in after a while. I'm beginning to realize they blend in a lot more.
That lifestyle
The
ages you
older
quick though.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the kind of movie he did, you know, as I say, put him on the map. But he also did Gandhi, which I always thought was one of the great movies of all time, frankly. But, it's interesting to me, I saw it when I was a member of the North American Broadcast Association of Christian Communicators, part of the point of being a member of the North American Broadcast section of the World Association of Christian Communication, there it is.
Wow, that's a title.
Yeah, to be a member, you had to be able to say that all in one breath. But we used to meet together in Florida after Thanksgiving. That was always the week after Thanksgiving. It was an ecumenical or an interfaith group, whichever way you want to look at it. In those days, it was ecumenical. An ecumenical group, and then one night of the 4 days that we were there, we would get a movie that nobody else had seen yet. It would be released in a week or two, but so, and it was really an interesting thing to try and get the movie first of all. And so this particular year, they arranged to have Gandhi right before it was released. So we were among the first to see it, to see the movie Gandhi, which I thought was just an incredible film. And so Martin plays a part in this. He plays the reporter for the New York Times, entirely different from Apocalypse Now. And here you see him not playing the major role in any way, shape, or form. It's a minor role, but nevertheless very important, and gives us a sense. Have any of you seen Gandhi? Yeah.
That's in it.
Okay. And you know, just this great man of peace, and the way that he is in this movie, you see how good he is. But also, you get a chance to see Martin on the other side, you know, not drinking, but being the actor that he can be. All right?
Nationalism, we're not resisting anything but the idea that people can't live together. You see, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Jews, even Christians. Mr. Walker of the New York Times. How you doing? Without a paper, a journal of some kind, you cannot unite a community. You belong to a very important profession.
And what do you think an important professional should write about your response to General Smuts' newest legislation?
I don't know. I'm still searching for a response.
You will respect the law.
There are unjust laws as there are unjust men.
And you're an awful small minority to take on the South African government, not to mention the British Empire.
If you are a minority of one, the truth is the truth. Herman Kallenberg, he's our chief carpenter, also our chief benefactor.
Vince Walker, New York Times. Look, well, this is quite a place you got here. And you call it an ashram?
That's right. The word only means community, But it could stand for village or the world.
You're an ambitious man, Mr. Geaney.
I hope not.
I hear that you also participate in preparing the meals and cleaning the toilets. Is that part of the experiment?
Bar? We will need another place set for Mr. Walker's driver.
I will tell Tara.
Yes, it's one way to learn that each man's labor is as important as another's. In fact, while you're doing it, cleaning the toilet seems far more important than the law. Please, come and join us. You'll need something before your journey back. Would you excuse me, please?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So what did you see in that particular little piece?
It looked like the driver was expecting to be excluded from dinner.
Of course. Why would that be?
South Africa.
South Africa.
Apartheid.
Apartheid, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's very much a part of what was going on. The man, as I'm sure you're all aware, that playing opposite Martin is Gandhi.
Yes,
But Gandhi, the young Gandhi.
young guy.
The young
The
guy
lawyer.
is still in South Africa, right? And the lawyer, but all the things he says, you're just so pointed, boom, boom. I hope not. You're an ambitious man. I hope not. Right? So, but there you see Martin being Martin. I mean, that's very much the way he was and is. Okay, and when you, as an actor, and the actor that I got to know over a number of years because he worked with insight. So there's a chapter in the book, not a chapter, but a section of the book, which I hope I can find, that tells us about who he was in terms of Paulus Productions. There's a film company in Hollywood known as Paulus Productions, and it was run originally by a priest called Father Elwood Kaiser. Elwood was a friend of mine. There were 4 or 5 of us, at one point about 8 of us, in communications for the Paulus Fathers. There was about 200 Paulus at that time, and 8 of us were in communications. So we ran that whole operation. And Father Kaiser was kind of the king of all of us. He was the what I used to call the blonde god from the West. He was very tall, had this. He was blonde. He had hair, A, and B. He was blonde. He was always blonde. I thought, God, it's amazing. And no, he did not. What do you call his hair? Bleach it or any of that kind of stuff. He was naturally a blonde guy, and he had this incredible opportunity to come to be in Hollywood. Our parish in Los Angeles, the Paulus Parish in Los Angeles, is deep in the Beverly Hills, and so a lot of the actors and actresses and so on and so forth would come to the parish, and Father Kaiser had a little information center as a part of the parish. Not quite as lovely as this place is, but it was a couple of rooms, and he used to do the same thing we do. He would teach Catholicism to classes, and you would go for 16 weeks, okay? 2 classes a night. At the end of the 16 weeks, you would be baptized, if you chose to be. I mean, we didn't hammer your head against the wall and say you're going to be baptized, but we would take the people all through this course on Catholicism, and this was probably 60, 61, 62, somewhere in through there, and he decided that a smart thing to do was to put these lessons that he was giving on television, and then so many more people would be able to watch it, right? So he did these things, and he called it the insight. It was insight into Catholicism, right? And there would be 16 courses and so on. And some of the people living in the parish were people that you would have known at that time. You probably don't know them now. But Jack Shea was one of them. He was a producer, director, etc., etc., etc. He was in the parish at the time.
Tell them who your famous altar boy was.
My famous altar boy was Mark Harmon. You know NCIS, Mark Harmon? He used to be an altar boy of mine.
He's Catholic.
One time, he didn't even know he was Catholic.
Do you know he's Catholic?
No, he's quite good, and he's a quite good Catholic.
Wow.
He played
He
Ted
is
Bundy
white.
too, though.
And he's been married a long, long time. Much credit to Mark.
He sees under the radar, so that's
Yeah.
means a lot.
Yeah, but one time, I have no idea to this day what he did, but he and another young man at the time, they were about 11, I think, whatever it is they did, drew the ire of their associate pastor, okay? I was the third guy on the team. I was 26 or 27. And whatever he did, I have no idea, but I just blasted the two of them. So they were like, anyway, Mark turned out to be this great actor, and, oh, I can't think of his name right now. But the other man turned out to be a great writer of things relating to pastoral councils. He's got books all over the place. What the, you know, how'd that happen? So anyway, so that's my famous person. Not the only, there's a lot of them. But Mark was an altar boy. And at one point I took a picture of him for some reason. And I've shown it to many, many people. And said, I'll give you $5 if you can tell me who that is.
I don't know.
No, nobody knows. Because he changed so much, it's unbelievable. So very, very radically changed. But anyway, that's Mark Harmon. What was I talking about before I got this?
Insight.
Oh, Martin Sheen and Insight, yes. So Father Kaiser began by taking these lectures that he gave at the Catholic Information Center in Los Angeles and put them on television. And Jack Shea was in the parish. Jack said to him, you know, Father, there's some things you could do to really help this show. And boy, was he right about that. So even when we used to watch it as students, you know, we used to laugh. Terrible thing. But anyway, so Bud said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, maybe you could do just a little scene about the way it should be, you know, if you're going to be a Christian and a Catholic. Just do a little scene, all right? So they started off doing the little scenes, and, you know, more and more, there would be less and less of Father Kaiser. Okay? So there'd be more actors. And then they got the idea, you know, if you ask some of the people here in Hollywood to do a show for you, they will do it. You know, Jack Shea would go out and contact somebody like Martin Sheen, who was in good shape at that time. He was doing some good stuff. But he also needed some exposure. He didn't have a whole pile of exposure. He did all kinds of work for Father Kaiser, for the Insight series. So did Ed Asner. All kinds of people that you've heard about. Jane Wyman. Who's the guy? Oh, the two brothers, not the two brothers.
Bridges?
No, but Bridges did some work for them too, yeah. No, these two are very well known. They always worked together. And what were they called? The blank.
Smothers Brothers is all I can think of.
No, you know, so like everything else, it'll come to the eventually.
It'll come to the middle of
And Walter, and I can see the two of them. Anyway, so a lot of people in Hollywood got involved in these films, and then they would go on from there to do great films, you know, for Hollywood. And so they always used to say, you know, you got to do your piece for Father Kaiser, because that's when you get the job. and Bud used to say to them all the time, you know, sure you get a couple million for doing this movie, but I give you grace. So you do it for me, you do it for nothing, but you get God's grace because you worked hard and blah, blah, blah. And so I happened to be at the studio the day that at the end of they had done the recording of an Insight, and I was there for no reason whatsoever other than I walked across part of the lot, and they shot it 13 times. I had to walk across because it kept on getting screwed up. And anyway, I just happened to be there visiting, and at the end of it, the producer said to him, you know, Bud was saying, it's time for, you know, I got to do my piece. Because at the end of all of these shows, he would then tell you what you saw, okay? Which was okay, but you know, if the show isn't telling you what you just saw, then forget about it, right? But he would always boom, boom, and he would line it up and get that. And this time they finished and they said, gee, Father, the show is just 29:30, 27:30. We just don't have any room for it. And I looked at them and I'm like, this is incredible. We finally got it. But, you know, they had worked for a long time to get to that point where the show said what needed to be said. He didn't need to finish it off. So, but he was very, very well known in Hollywood, very, very established the Humanitas Prize, which is, we give an award each year to writers who create good human values in their writing, whatever. It might be a television show, it might be a movie, whatever. And the prizes are to the writer, and they're cash prizes. They're not little statues. It's like if you write the best movie of the year, I think it's $50,000.
Wow.
So, you know, and the best television show might be like $20,000. And then there's smaller prizes. But all of it is money. The idea being, write another one, we might give you the prize again. It's that kind of stuff. And most of the guys you see writing those things are incredibly good writers. They're, you know, and so they do very human values material. They don't do much junk. So, and some of them, I haven't seen some of them for a long time in terms of their credits. So their time is probably past. For a while there, you could see them all the time. They were wonderful, and wonderful people doing wonderful things. So it was very important to deal with.
So then how did you meet Mr. Sheen?
Mr. Sheen. I met Mr. Sheen because I met Father Kaiser was our connection.
Okay.
And then one time, I needed a voiceover for a documentary I was doing. Okay. So I called Martin and I said, you know, is there any chance you could do a voiceover for me? I'll send you the script. And he said, sure, Father, I'd be delighted to do that. Well, okay. And you pay them for a certain amount for these little favors they do. Bud Kaiser never paid them, but I did.
Oh.
And so anyway, he does the voiceover, says he will do it. And in those days, we had moved along quite a bit. And I was in Washington, D.C., and he was in Los Angeles. And I was recording what he was doing in Washington, D.C. The miracles of our technology are unbelievable. And I could talk back and forth to him. Okay, so we get into the studio, and we start doing the voiceover, and Martin says to me, Father, this would be better if you said it this way. He kind of rewrote the script.
Writing it for you.
You know, and I said, Martin, anything that will make it easier for you to do your work, I said, no problem. You just tell me what word you want to change and we'll change it. And he, okay, great. So he did that piece, whatever part of it was, right? And we started on the next piece. He said, you know, Father, this would be better if you wrote it this way. And I finally did say to him, I said, Martin, you're the voiceover, right? And he said, right. And I said, your job is to make sure that what I wrote gets to be on that tape, okay? Are we all set on that? Oh yeah, Father, I understand. Boy, that was the end. After that, it was just straight whatever we had in the script. Except he would see a piece here and there, and he would say, it would be easier for me to say it this way. Great, say it that way. But, geez, don't try to rewrite the whole thing. It took me, I don't know how long to
So did you have a lot of contact with him when Father Kaiser was?
We, you know, only in seeing him and that kind of stuff. I mean,
Oh.
as I say, I think if he fell across me today, he wouldn't know who I was.
Well,
He might
no.
remember, weren't you the guy that was with Kaiser? Yeah, he might remember that,
Okay.
but that would be it.
And then who got? I'm sorry, you said those prizes or those awards. Who
The
got
Humanitas
those?
Prize.
The writers got those.
The
or
writers
Father
get those,
Kaiser?
yes, yeah, each year.
Did Father Kaiser get anything for his?
No, Father Kaiser put it together.
Right. Okay.
So he was the executive producer
Okay.
of Paulus Productions. He was also the president of the Humanitas Prize.
And who was?
He invented it.
Okay. And who was Bud? You mentioned Bud.
Well, that's Bud is, I'm sorry, it's Father Kaiser.
Oh, that was a nickname for
Yeah,
him.
right.
Oh.
We call him Bud, Big
Oh.
Bud.
Oh, Big Bud. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was about 6'4", 6'5".
Okay. Thank you.
Very tall
Okay.
man.
Thank you.
Very smart, very bright, very spiritual.
like you.
Well, except for the last part. But he was very,
Yeah.
really, he spent a lot of time in prayer.
Don't they show, I can't get that station now with EWTN, it seems like they show some of those old
Oh, they probably
insights
do, old
on-
insights, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think they do,
I wouldn't be, because they're available.
yeah.
And they're still very good. And
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the ones that, like, Ed Aston did one where he was God
Oh.
in Genesis,
Oh,
creating the earth. I mean, it's really like, holy
he'd be
smoke.
good for that part
Sure.
of his voice,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And I'm sure Gregory Peck did a few of them and so on
Oh,
and so
that's
forth.
neat. Oh.
And as I said, Jane Wyman, and some of the people that you all know. It's very interesting to me when I talk to oftentimes now I'm getting married people, young couples that are engaged, and I will say to them, well, they will ask me, have I been a priest? And I'll say, well, I began in Los Angeles.
Oh.
Well, where in Los Angeles? Well, in Westwood. Well, isn't that where the movie started? Yes, that's where the movie started.
Mm.
Okay, did you know any of them, Father? I said, yes, I did. Yeah, knew quite a few of them. Well, like who? And I say, Jane Wyman.
They don't know who that is.
I don't have a clue, and I thought, well, that's
I
just
do.
they're not thinking. I said, who was the second wife, or who was the first wife of Ronald Reagan?
They went, they're too young.
Nothing.
Yeah.
How about Loretta Young?
Oh, yeah.
Irene Dunn?
Oh, yeah, Granny.
Gregory Peck? Finally one couple said, oh yeah, we know him. Didn't he do, I said, MacArthur. Oh yeah, that's it, yeah, right. Did a lot of other movies too. I said, that's right. Yeah. But Gregory came out of the church one day, and kind of walking towards me. There's only one person in the world I think that ever walked like that. And he's kind of walking towards me. I thought to myself, wow, he really looks like Gregory Peck. And he walked up to me and he says, hello, Father. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it is Gregory Peck. And I said, Mr. Peck, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I'm not a Catholic, which was not the answer I was looking for. And I said, so why are you here? And he said, because my wife is a Catholic.
Oh.
And my daughter goes to your school. Oh, great. So, yeah.
Did he ever convert?
No. Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Oh.
Did you ever see the Keys of the Kingdom? We
Yes.
played a priest that was
Sure.
very good at that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, well, Gregory's a great actor.
Oh.
I think he's a terrific, man. But the only one that I know of, anyway, we talk about it, I don't know if it's true, I have no idea. But we've always said that one of our Paulist priests baptized John Wayne on his deathbed.
Oh.
I find that a little hard to believe.
Somebody did.
Yeah. So,
I like John.
and then the other one that I knew when she was very, very ill was Patricia Neal.
Oh, yeah.
She was really sick. And I was the chaplain at UCLA Hospital,
Oh.
and she was there. So I got to see her a lot. But thank God she got over that. So, never really went back to film though.
Oh.
So we had, it's quite a place out there in LA. Anyway, let's get back to Martin Sheen here.
Interesting.
Anyway, you can read that here in Rose's book. She has a very nice section and very nicely positive about the Paulist Fathers in there. Okay, so Martin Sheen, he's a social, we're going to the social activist part, okay? And,
No clip from the
Do
West
you have a
Wing?
clip of the West Wing, Father?
I do not have a click of the West Wing.
Oh.
So, but we'll look at page 38 of the book
Okay.
and talk about the fact that he's a social activist. If you have the book, if you don't, we'll read it to you. Oh, here it is. I should have known. I jumped ahead of myself a little bit here. Sorry about that. But anyway, he was. She talks here about making television dramas and films for a Los Angeles-based Catholic production company. I love the description. Paulist Productions, and he would do so across the span of 25 years. And so she has all the names of all the various folks that wrote. And of course, a lot of these people are people that I've met and, sat down and talked to in terms of doing work with them and sometimes just being there because I was on vacation and I went down to see them filming. So, because at the time I was doing the same thing on the East Coast. not with quite as much success, but just doing my thing on radio and television, so on and so forth. The video that Martin did do the voiceover for was the one that we created about John Paul II, which we created for ABC. And it was really basically it was a biography of the Pope at that time. And the only thing I know about that video, which is interesting to me anyway, is that the ambassador to the Vatican was a man named Flynn at the time. He was the former mayor of Boston, and I went to do an interview with him because he was the Vatican ambassador at the time, and we shared a lot of stories about Boston and blah, blah, blah. And then we did the interview, and in the interview he mentioned the fact that what is the greatest group in the world for getting information that people need. And I looked at him, I thought, I don't know, I said, CIA? And he said, no, the Vatican. And I thought, give me a break. I said, why would you say that? And he said, because in the Vatican, if the Holy Father wants to know something about anything, anywhere in the world, all he has to do is pick up the phone and call the local priest. And I thought, smoke, that's right. I hadn't thought about that. Every piece of earth is covered by a parish somewhere. And so it's true. I mean, if you really want to find out what's going on someplace, you go to a parish priest in that particular area, he'll tell you what's happening. And anyway, we did all that. You know, we finished the product. ABC aired it. I carried it to the Vatican, you know, to give it to the Holy Father. I gave it to the Holy Father. Usually that just winds up in an archive someplace.
What was the name of the film?
John Paul II, A Light for the Nations.
Just called John Paul II.
Yeah, John Paul II, A Light for the Nations. And I'm amazed I was able to pull that out of my hat. Anyway, the ambassador said to me one time, he says, you know what, Father? I said, I have no idea. Well, I was in the Vatican for some reason. And he said, the Holy Father watched the film. I said, you're full of smoke. Don't be silly. He didn't watch it. He said, I'm telling you, I have only told one person in all the interviews I've done this particular point that the Pope was able to relate to me. He said, I'm telling you, he watched that video because you're the only one that I told that to. I thought, oh my goodness gracious me. Well, so, anyway, whether it happened or not, I have no idea. That we did the video, that we did a thing that was on ABC, that's just history.
And that's when Pope John Paul was still alive?
He was still alive, although
you
he was
brought-
not well. That's
Right.
the reason we were doing the video.
Okay, well, I mean, not to be,
Basically to have, so they'd have something on
right.
file that they could pull out of the rack. if
And
he
you
died.
took that to the Vatican and gave that to the
Oh,
Pope
oh,
yourself?
Oh, sure.
Wow,
Oh, yeah. We did a lot of that.
that's wonderful.
So you met John Paul II.
Oh, yeah.
You act like it's like
No,
everyone
no big
does.
deal.
We all meet popes, you know. You met 5 popes.
No, 6 times I met John Paul.
Oh, you met him 6 times.
When
Oh,
is
yeah.
that?
Yeah, you get one of these, and he'd walk up to you, right, you know, and he'd say, he'd be talking to you, but he'd look at me.
Oh,
One of the things I used to think, wait a minute, you know, I just worked my fanny off here for 6 months for you. That's the best you can do.
It's a
But
shame.
anyway, it's easy for me to say.
have you shook hands with Pope Francis?
No,
Not yet.
You were there,
I was there in Washington, yes. Yeah.
but you didn't get that close to do
We
that.
didn't do that routine.
Well, I'm sure you will.
That's Father Robert Sirico.
Oh, sure. Oh, he's over there all the time.
Oh,
Sure.
he is too?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, no, we did, after each trip, if you worked in the media, the Pope would come along the line. And so I did 5 trips, 5 lines. But the day we went with another video to see him, that was a special day. That really was nice. I celebrated Mass with him,
Oh, wow.
you know, and
That's
as I, God, this is not saying much about Martin Sheen. But anyways,
Well.
as I walked in the door, right,
Oh, that's amazing.
of the papal apartments, the priest there, I'm sure what he thought was, I've seen this guy somewhere before. He'd seen me on the trips. He was the Pope's assistant. And Monsignor Givich now the Archbishop of Krakow. And he says to me, are you Irish? And I said, well, I'm Irish American, but you speak English. I mean, that was the thing. You know? I said, yes, get over there. Well, you know, so I went over there, and the next thing he came over, and there were 4 of us in that little corner, and he says, I want you to put on vestments, you will come celebrate with the Holy Father this morning.
Wow.
So I thought, holy smack. So,
Wow.
So you didn't even know, it was like a surprise.
We went into the chapel, right, and so I forget that I'm, at that point especially, that I'm getting old, right? So I was kind of like the oldest dog in the bunch. So I get the first spot, right? So I'm right beside the Holy Father saying Mass. And like, he's here and I'm here, right? And we're going through Mass, and the wonderful thing about priesthood is whether you're the Pope or the kid that was just ordained, okay? You say Mass the exact same way. It doesn't make any difference what country you're in, it's all the same. Everything, every gesture is exactly the same.
Wonderful.
So, we're going along, and I'm honest to God, I was doing my part. And the next thing I see is a finger on, come on, dummies, say your part.
Oh,
I was so gone.
Oh, the Pope was pointing
The
your
Pope was pointing, the Pope was pointing to my place. You know.
Could you speak? I mean.
I read my part, oh yeah, no,
He didn't have to nudge you
I
with
did
his
I did
elbow.
my part. In the meantime,
Exciting.
they never allow, the Vatican never allows you to bring any cameras into the Pope's chapel. They just do not. Okay? I got out afterwards, and my PR person, Jerry, says to me, I got it on film. I said, what are you talking about? He says, I brought my camera in there. I said, Jerry, don't do those things. And he says, I told him, couldn't believe this, buddy. I told him you were a big-time producer from the United States. And that, you know, your mother needed to see this video of you. My mother, God, she'd been dead for like 10 years. That to see, you know, to see you standing beside the Pope, she just had to have it. And they let him in, they let him do it. I couldn't believe it. So I had a video. Celebrating Mass with him.
What language were you celebrating?
English. That's why they wanted me in English.
So everyone was, the whole Mass was in English?
The Mass himself and everybody
Okay,
there.
I didn't know if you had to do like just part in English, the whole thing was in English,
The
wow.
whole thing was in English. No, it was, I think it was a Thursday. It was English Day, it's English Day.
If it's Thursday, it must be
Monday is Spanish Day, Tuesday is Italian Day, Wednesday is what, who knows? Thursday was English Day.
Wow.
So that's, I just happened to be at the right spot at the right time.
Can we see it?
You could, yeah, I haven't taken it out of the box.
I would love to see
If
it.
it hasn't disintegrated, you could, yeah.
Yeah, we should figure out a way to get that so we can put it out on YouTube.
I would love to see that.
Oh, yeah?
I really
Oh,
would,
that's
that would be so
Yeah,
cool.
I've never seen it. Oh, you've never seen it?
You never watched it?
Never.
And I thought the
Rather
funniest
instead
part
of
of the
the
whole
Mass
thing,
for
you have to
shut-ins.
listen to this very carefully to get it, but I called my brother, needless to say, and told him about, you know, the great event. And he said, geez, John, that's amazing, you know, wow. And so he in turn starts calling all the family. Well, he called this very good friend of ours, who is not related to us by blood. He's just, his mother and my mother were just the best of friends. And this child came out of the hospital and came to our house. It shows you how close we were. Anyway, Kevin calls Jimmy Doyle, and he says to him, Jimmy, and he told him what had happened, right? And so Jimmy picked up the phone, and he says, let me think and make sure I get it straight. You will never guess who celebrated Mass with Johnny Geaney today. You're talking about putting a spin on it.
It's like the joke about the Pope being the driver.
Yeah, right, same idea. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So anyway, so enough of those stories. We'll get back to
Oh, that's so good.
Martin
It's a
Sheen.
great story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, we got the story done. Okay, so we talked about the Paulist Fathers and all that good thing. And here he also, we talked a little bit, in 1981 he returned to the practice of his faith, okay? One of the people who was very influential in all of that was indeed Father Kaiser, in terms of kind of, you know, come on Martin, wake up here, let's get on the stick. You should be a good Catholic, okay? And he attributes his change to Mother Teresa, not to Father Kaiser. But Kaiser was very much a part of it. So was Monsignor Sheen, not Sheen, Sheen, who was the priest in Malibu. Was very effective in doing that. He never met Mother Teresa, and which I find very hard to believe because he worked there. And if you've been to Mother Teresa's house and you work there, you meet her. It's almost like, you know, it just happened. I mean, I met her, but I was in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
You met Mother Teresa too?
Oh, yeah. You'd think someone would rub off, wouldn't you?
Oh,
I also did an interview with Helder Camera. Do you know Helder Camera? Do you know Helder?
no.
Oh, Lord, you gotta know Helder. Oh, my gosh.
Elder?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful Archbishop of Recife in Brazil.
Oh,
Incredible, just incredible.
where'd you meet him?
Same place in Philadelphia.
Oh, my
They were
gosh.
together. Yeah, but I did an interview with him. I mean, we were sitting it was unbelievable. I mean, really. I'm like, it's noontime or something, right? And I said to him, Archbishop, if you have a minute, you come over to see our, we'll be right there at this particular point, you know, waiting for you. Okay. So we're all, you know, sitting there kind of waiting for him to come, not expecting him really to come, you know.
Oh.
But all of a sudden, there were two bumps in the why I can remember that, God knows. But, you know, in the grass. The next thing I see is this coming up over the grass. Here comes the Archbishop, you know, all dressed in the robes. And all. I'm like, what is this? And he comes over, and I can't remember whether we gave him a sandwich or he had a sandwich with him. But he sat there with us and had a sandwich sitting on the grass.
Oh, wow.
Well, we kind of talked to him about social justice and what he was doing in Recife and how the wonder of all of that. And I was just like, holy smoke. He was the guy is a better way to put it, but every Sunday in his cathedral, which we're about to start in ours, he would do, after Holy Communion, all right, after the prayer, he would do 20 minutes on social justice every single Sunday. And after a while, that cathedral was so jammed with people, they didn't know what to do with it. I mean, it was just incredible.
Before Mass ended?
Yep,
And you're going to introduce that at the
sure.
cathedral?
Not social justice, no.
But
No.
you're gonna have something
Other things. Yeah.
after communion? Oh, great.
20 minutes, huh?
A few little, well, he did 20 minutes.
Oh.
We're looking at 5.
Oh, wow.
And, but, I mean, the things he did in Recife to help to help those people, just incredible, because the poverty there was just abominable. And he really did a terrific job. Why he's not on the calendar of saints is more than I know. It just seems impossible to me. And you go, I went to his tomb the last time I was there, and I just thought, it was so fitting. It was just so simple. You know, none of this ornate stuff. I'm the Archbishop. No, just a very simple little grave. Good for you.
And Recife is north of the Amazon, right?
Oh, geez, don't get me involved in the Amazon.
I'm just thinking
I know it's up this way.
Yeah, it doesn't get the profile of like Rio or Sao Paulo.
Yeah,
So,
no.
Yeah, in
They
Rio and
don't.
Sao Paulo, they're impoverished enough as it is.
Sure, right.
So they would be more neglected.
Yeah, it was a great. He's a great man, great man. And I went down there when I was the priest director of Catholic Relief Services, and we were going to build a school in honor of my mother, but between her death and a few other things, it never happened. But I mean, you could build a school for $6,000.
Wow.
Give me a break. Unbelievable. Anyway, enough about him. But he you know, look him up. If those of you who are interested in social justice, he is just.
His last name is Camera, did you say?
Camara, C-A-M-A-R-A.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You know, notice that the comparison here, okay? He returned to the practice of his faith in 1981, and it's the same year that he met the Berrigan brothers. Are we aware of who the Berrigan brothers are?
Yes.
Okay. Great social activists, wonderful people, incredible. Yeah. This is Dan, and that is his brother Philip. Dan's a Jesuit, but we don't hold that against him. And this is the Josephites. he was a Josephite priest. You know who the Josephites are? They are priests, mostly white, who spend their lives in African American parishes. Okay. So they evangelize African Americans. Great group, terrific group. And some really wonderful priests that do some really great work with the African American community. We have a little church in Alexandria, Virginia. If you didn't know it was there, you'd never know it was there. And it's a jewel of a church. And it was in Alexandria, this very fancy, beautiful city, you know, that all the rich people love to live in. Here's this little church in the middle of Alexandria for the slaves that used to work there. Except, you know, that by now it's 1937 or whatever. And it was built by Mother Drexel. Mother Drexel went down to Alexandria, was walking around or whatever, and she said to the priests who were there, the Josephites, she said to them, what's the problem here? How come we don't have a church for these people? Well, we got this problem, we got that problem, we got the other problem. What's the real problem? The real problem is, Mother, we can't find any property. Who's going to sell property to African Americans? Not in this town. Nobody's going to sell that. Really? Yes. So Mother goes, and Mother manipulates, right? That's a bad word, but that's what she did. She manipulated the city council, blah, 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 blah. I am buying the property, right? Good, wonderful, Philadelphia, rich, right? And, except she was a nun, but other than that. So she used her family's money to buy the property. And then she donated the church. And so it's still standing there today. I did a 50th anniversary there a year or two ago. And A, it was a delightful church to be working in, and B, I just thought, boy, the history of this place is just incredible. Sorry, folks, those of you who are watching. So, anyway, it's they do incredible work, the Josephites. But they were also enormous social activists. And even though this is where we get the idea that he never met Dorothy, is from this Jeff Dietrich, who was a Catholic worker in Los Angeles. He says, I don't think Martin ever met Dorothy. And I can't believe it, but nevertheless, as he says here, it's her kind of Catholicism that is essential to the way that Martin Sheen lives his faith. Okay? And his name comes from an actor in New York, or a producer, I don't remember which, who was very good to him, whose name was Martin. And Sheen, of course, comes from Bishop Sheen, who was on television at the time.
You want to just switch mics?
Okay, is it still working?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Most of this is for the television. Okay, so very important what she did, because it shaped his mind into what was going on about social justice. Another name that you may not have heard of is Mitch Snyder. You heard of Mitch? Mitch was a homeless advocate in Washington, D.C. Okay, in the 80s and 90s. All right, he and a former student of mine. Some of the stuff that ties up here is unbelievable. But a former student of mine named Ed Geaney, he and Geaney founded a huge home for the homeless in the middle of Washington, D.C. It's still there. You can drive by as you're going to the airport. And he and Mitch did a great deal of work together. And it was all based on trying to help the people who were homeless. They slept out on the streets, you know, without very little cover, and cops would pick them up and take them away. I mean, it was just awful, awful stuff that went on.
Are you going to comment at all on that picture from the School of the Americas?
He does. This book does, yes. Yeah.
No, I just wondered if you were going to, as part of Martin's social
other than no, just as you mentioned it, fine. But I did not talk about his work.
He was arrested, wasn't he arrested?
He was arrested many times for what he called crossing the line.
Okay.
And crossing the line meant that you would go up to an atomic place where they were, testing atomic bombs or making atomic bombs or whatever it was. And then at a certain point, the police would say, that's it, no further.
Trespassing, basically.
Huh?
Basically trespassing.
Yeah,
No more.
yeah, you can walk up to this line, you cross that line, you're trespassing, you'll be subject to arrest, crossing the line.
Yeah, crossing the line at the School of the Americas represents objecting to the United States government.
Right.
Providing a school where soldiers from south of here
South
learn
American
to kill their
countries.
own people
Right.
and torture them.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that still
That's what he
exists?
is best known for, I think.
Well,
His
they've
activism.
given it a
I've been
different
trying
name,
to-
but I think it
Yeah,
still
they call it
exists.
WISC now.
Yeah.
Western Hemisphere
it's still the
Institute
same
for
thing.
something or
Oh,
other.
they're doing some terror stuff.
Oh.
So, but,
That's where my daughter met him anyway.
oh, is that right? Oh, yeah, she was down there, good for her. Yeah, all right. Rose says in the book, for a dedicated person, one form of success is the satisfaction of taking the right civil or moral stand, however unpopular it is, and suffering the consequences. That's a real social activist, okay? You know it's wrong, and you put your life on the line, and you do what has to be done in order to make the moral stand. And you're going to succeed? No. More than likely, no. Most of the things that people protested against in those times, with Martin, Mitch Snyder, Ed Geaney, that whole crowd, they are all, first of all, they're dead. And then secondly, most of the things that they spoke against are still going on. You know, they were not able to change. So you could say, well, were they successful? And the answer would be, in the eyes of normal folk, no. In the eyes of people who take moral stands, yes. Because no matter how unpopular it was, and it was very unpopular, okay? And at one point, Martin had a real problem. Because when he started doing the West Wing, he had a contract with NBC. And NBC did not want to be having him
That's right.
crossing the line. Because if he crossed the line, he would lose his life. His money,
Yeah.
right? So now he's trying to figure out ways to stay out of jail, right, while he's still doing the same kind of stuff. So it was and that part of the book I think is kind of intriguing. The book I don't think is a great read. It's, you kind of have to go through it. That's the way I felt about it.
I read one quote on Martin. He was protesting a nuclear facility.
Right.
And a guy came up to him and said, "Are you a communist?" And his answer was, "Oh, I'm worse than a communist. I'm a Catholic."
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. And he would say something like that too. Here is this thing here. I work for NBC to make a living. I do this to stay alive. Crossing the line, protesting, making sure that the people are, he met, what's his name, Cesar Chavez, and was very much involved in that. So whatever the current peace, people would ask Martin to become involved. Why? Because it drew all kinds of media attention to the fact that what needed to be done, and how could we do that? Well, you only do that if you can grab attention. If you don't grab attention, nobody's going to do anything about anything. So, okay. And then this is on page 1, and I think it's the best line in the book, frankly. Saints are celebrities to Catholics, right? All right. Martin Sheen is a Catholic who is a celebrity. There's a difference. So we say, like Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa, because she's a saint, she's a celebrity. All right? Okay. Somebody said the other night, did so-and-so meet Mother Teresa? And they said, no, she had died before he had an opportunity. And he says, that's too bad, because he would have enjoyed so much meeting her. But that's part of the life, right? So saints are celebrities to us, and they are. We talk about St. John Chrysostom today, the golden mouth he was called. That's what Chrysostom means. He was a great preacher, so he was called the golden mouth. In our community as Paulus, we have a lot of preachers, and we oftentimes speak of the guys who have the golden tones, and then there's the guys that have the silver tones. Their voices aren't quite as low and all that kind of stuff. So, an interesting thing. Anyway, saints are celebrities to Catholics. Martin Sheen is a Catholic who is a celebrity. And also a family man, very dedicated to his wife, very dedicated to his children. I think in the book it quotes where he talks about Charlie Sheen, his son, who is pretty much going down the same path Martin did, you know, alcoholism and so on. And he says, you know, when he comes out, we'll be there. We're in a dark place now. When he comes out, we'll be there. No. That's that kind of tough love that is so very, very difficult.
He knows the journey.
Yeah, he knows the journey, right? Yeah. So anyway, that gives you a little hint, at least, of what Martin is about. If you want to read the book, I urge you to do that. It's a short book. That's one thing about it. And Sister Rose is an amazing woman. She can still calm this stuff out even though she's been in us. All right, thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening to the stories.
Thank you, Father, it was wonderful.
We enjoyed
Thank you.
having you. Thank you.
Oh, let's do that, right, come on, he doesn't get any applause.